Welcome back to System Prompt. This is episode number 3. My name is Val.
And I'm Peter, and I can't believe we made it to episode 3 without killing each other, right? I mean,
We did. This is proof that we made it.
yeah,
And we got a good one today, guys. We are going to be talking about, is AI agents taking jobs? Dun, 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 dun. Peter, this is
that's
a
a big
hot
topic.
topic. We got a lot of opinions. You know what we do. Let's jump right into it. Is AI agents taking jobs? But first of all, let's level set so we can let everybody know where we're coming from. What are AI agents actually? And then we could jump right into it. What are AI agents, Peter?
AI. So a lot of people, when they think about including AI into a business or a workflow, they're they're not actually thinking about agents. They're thinking about chatbots. What can I do with a chatbot? When we're thinking about agents specifically, we're thinking about AI that we can task to do something from beginning to end. So an agentic workflow would be we set up a time for something to do. This is or a trigger-based function or something to that effect, and it could walk through that entire process to the end and go, here, I'm done. That's what I would define specifically as an AI agentic process.
And funny enough, the simplest version and probably the most popular is in an IDE. When people are building apps and they're building code with AI, they're essentially using an AI agent on top of a infrastructure that allows them to generate code.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the complete collapse of the cost and code, right? I think we went over this briefly in episode 1 specifically, but it's the collapse of the cost and code, but it's an increase in the cost of system architecture because you actually still have to know how to prompt it and what to build and what the sequence of events are to actually get a completed product. But code is cheap, right? Especially if you can get it out of a $20 ChatGPT codex, right? You can use codex for $20 a month, 5.4 high. I mean, you're probably not going to get a lot of prompts out of it, but yeah. And is this something that's taking some software engineers' positions in some of these workplaces? I feel like it's a little more nuanced than that, right? There's just a little bit more nuanced than that. Is it? It's decreasing the amount of junior positions that these people want to hire for. What we're also seeing is a mass. Let's lessen that expression. Not mass, right? Because we're talking about somewhere in the vicinity of about 1% of the workforce. Tech space in general like to hoard talent. So talent didn't go anywhere else. They would hoard talent just to have it there. Everybody knew that this was happening. That's why it was fantastic to get a job at these places because it was generally a pretty cushy position where you're responsible for a thing and all you have to do is execute the thing. But now a lot of these companies need to account for capital expenditure when purchasing AI infrastructure. They can't afford to hoard these people anymore. They gotta,
No more
they
Taco
gotta.
Tuesdays.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Your job no longer comes with a gym membership. I mean, this is just.
Or
uh,
even worse, hey, let's cut headcount as the easiest way to stabilize this balance sheet.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of what we're seeing right now is also you have hiring displacements, right? And I got some stats on this, right? Because you got firms hire fewer workers because output per worker rises, right? So they're just not hiring enough because AI can do a lot of it. Are those agentic processes? Maybe. I mean, we'd have to see how these specific on a per company basis on what's going on. You're also seeing a lot of contractor cuts. Short-term contracts adjust faster, no severance, no friction. Freelance platforms saw, 21% fewer postings for automation-prone writing, coding within 8 months of ChatGPT's launch. I think you're seeing right now a lot of task transformation, right? Workers keep their jobs, but the task mix changes. Routine tasks are vanishing because AI can handle that. Verification, escalation handling, and AI oversight appear in the place of that. But you probably need less people to handle AI oversight than you do to actually do the individual jobs that AI is actually being able to do. So I think in the 1% of people that are like laying off, you're seeing these layoffs. Do they hire back 2 for every 5 that they let go once they have it in place? I mean, I don't know. We're still kind of sorting that out, right? We're still sorting that out. What you are seeing is a 12% decline in job postings, right? You're seeing, like I said before, 1% of service firms report AI-induced layoffs, and this is for 2025. This is not including Oracle, because Oracle happened yesterday before I actually started putting these numbers together. Oracle laid off 30,000 people, and they said it was because of capital expenditure. I mean, their debt we're almost one step above junk, and they had to come up with some dollars. So what was the easiest way for them to do that is to lay people off. Now, is that a pro? Well, it depends. Do you own Oracle stock?
Actually, I think it went up a little bit once they announced that they're going to cut all these people. But but it goes back to the original question: is like, did AI agents actually take someone's job? Were they able to create a system that works with the efficiency at least on par as a human? And this is the $1 million question. This is what everybody's talking about. But I don't know. I some areas, yes. A lot of areas, no. For today, that's going to change in the future. But I think there's a lot of there's a lot of fanfare about what's happening. But like, what is rooted in accuracy when we're thinking about AI actually taking somebody's job? And this is the part that I'm like, I don't know, man. In some areas, yeah, like a coding agent, if run by a really good developer or a really talented builder, yeah, you're punching above your weight class. But are there other downstream tasks that are needed now that replaces the original junior developer? Because there's many developers that have switched roles into product management and other roles where they switch within the company. Are those same people who were junior devs better suited to do something else within that org, which doesn't mean that they technically replaced them. They probably would have made that lateral career move within the company, or not lateral, but a move within the company anyways. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. I think you're right about the people with the lateral movement. But the biggest thing that concerns me the most, and I've seen a couple of articles on this, is that they're decreasing the amount of junior positions. Now, when you're decreasing the amount of junior positions because you're like, well, my seniors can handle it. Well, what happens when your seniors rotate out? Right? Now you're not going to have you don't have a stable of juniors that have been training into these seniors that can take over these senior positions, and these businesses are going to be hoping and praying that what Dario from Anthropic is saying actually comes to pass, because they're going to need it, right? They're going to need Claude Code to be able to handle 90% of their software engineering. Otherwise, they're going to be SOL, and they're going to have to train up juniors on the fly, and they're going to be putting people in senior positions that probably don't belong there. And these are one of the things that I see over the course of, you're looking at the numbers and you're seeing about 40% of the global employment is exposed to AI per the IMF, right? That's a 40% of the global employment. That's kind of an insane number to even be thinking about. But really, the question is, have you worked with agents before, right? And if you've worked with agents before, they're good at tasks, not necessarily jobs, full jobs, right? They're very good at tasks. Now, what happens with that, right? It frees up the person who had to do these tasks to do other things. Generally, more revenue-driven things. Generally, you're going to have AI doing a lot of administrative tasks, and you're going to have the person step up in their ability to be doing things that directly drive revenue. But that still means that there's going to be reduction in admin staff, right? There's still going to be rotating out admin staff. So to a degree, absolutely, that, yeah, AI is going to be directly taking jobs. And I mean, we can kind of tiptoe around the issue and not really just call it out, but it's hard to imagine when you're having agents that are handling scheduling, that are handling first contact, that are handling email responses, text responses, that you're not, are you always going to have a person there for people to talk to? Yeah. Are you going to have less? Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I think, so yeah, I think it's going to take parts of jobs and it's going to take some total jobs. But the reason why is because as a consumer, imagine if I never have to wait for a second ring on a phone call to start talking to a business about my problems. And imagine if that AI agent that I'm talking to actually can solve it. Well, then what was that original customer service rep going to be doing? Well, that customer service rep can make sure that agent is working properly, because they're the source of truth. They're on the front lines, knowing what should be or should not be a good response, as opposed to a developer that's building out that system. So, are all of them going to be needed to do that? No, unfortunately. But you're still going to need somebody with a central source of truth working alongside somebody who could build out the architecture, or even better, train that person to help manage the architecture. And now you have somebody with the central source of truth that's been working in this field for a very long time, saying, hey, the data is saying it should do this, but in real practice, it should be doing this. And then now you're starting to measure their output. But it sounds like, like in that scenario, that person kind of just has a new role. So, okay, let's take that example and say, well, if there's more problems to solve because AI can solve them faster, is there a world where there are going to be more companies that just need people like this to help manage their agents? Well, yeah, they got let go from the big tech company as a customer service rep, but then now some scrappy startup wants to have their own customer service reps, and they need somebody with experience that understands the agent architecture but really has the customer service experience to oversee that, so that it's not the CEO who's never taken these customer calls at that volume measuring that. So, in a way, I see that yeah, from the people who are hoarding all the talents by paying these they were paying well-deserved salaries. Well-deserved salaries, but they're just not working at the fancy company anymore. But they're working at some scrappy startup that now has the resources to solve a problem that they probably would have never been able to solve without the resource and infrastructure of AI. And it's just their role has changed. Now they're working. They went from working at a 30,000 person company to a 16-person company, and that 16-person company has an army of agents. But there's just a lot more 16-person companies because there's industries being built that would have never been built before because AI is making that possible. And it's almost like a redistribution. And we just seem to be at the very forefront of that redistribution. So, that's really disruption. So now that we're in limbo waiting for the scrappy startup guys that are out there to go and start these companies. And so the question is, are we just in a weird transition space? Are we in a weird transition space where the people that are getting let go are now in a space where they need to start skilling up to use the same skills that they have, add a little bit more to it, and then go offer their value to somebody else looking for them?
Look, I like that you brought that up, right? I like that you brought up a lot of those points there, because I do think that right now in this juncture of time, it's never been a better opportunity to spin up your own agency, right? Entrepreneur central, right? And I think this is, I don't want to deviate from the point, but this is why software as a service is getting a lot of flack, I feel anyway, right? Yeah. Because if you as a smaller agency can hit up all your peripheral area a lot better than a bigger agency can, because you can provide more personable service. So again, absolutely, I think that these smaller agencies, I think that you're right, we're just kind of sitting around waiting for them to kind of catch up, right? And I do think that a lot of these smaller agencies are going to require domain expertise, whether it's in customer service, whether it's in CRMs, whether it's in ERPs, whether it's in, there's a lot of things that these small startups can't, they'll build something because they can utilize AI in order to get a lot of information, but then they still need domain expertise to take it across the finish line, right? And that's what we're going to see a lot of. But I do think that we're going to end up in a situation where people like copywriters, translators, analysts, support reps, I don't see them really not gravitating to any of these places, right? Because I feel like these are tasks that are most exposed, right? These are tasks that are most exposed. You have, admin support, back office ops, call centers, help desks, to a little lesser degree, junior devs, any sort of maintenance work. I mean, the low-hanging fruit is probably not low-hanging fruit, but the people that are probably not going to get as replaced are like managers, clinicians, right? Because those people can't get replaced. Underwriters, because of the legal loopholes it is to get AI to underwrite for you. You actually need a person to sign off. Shout out 2008, right? Real. Yeah. If you know, you know. Tradespersons, and any sort of like in-person services. I don't think those people are going to get attacked per se. At least not immediately. Although the other day I did see a robot going across electrical wire and fixing boxes. And I was like, well, I didn't think electricians were on the table.
Carbon fiber,
Yeah. I didn't think electricians were on the table.
And it's funny you say that, because one of the thing that jumped out to me when you were naming some of these industries were language translation, and the first thing that popped up to me was Duolingo. They famously were saying they're cutting all these people last year, and they're going AI first, which I agree. I think everybody should be pushing this AI. But I felt a little way about it last year in the approach, because all I could think about was, they're saying they're replacing people with AI, but were the system that they were replacing people with, in April or May of 2025, good enough to actually replace a person on the edge cases? I mean, we just saw, a human being leak a mistake for one of the top AI companies and expose basically all their secrets, and it was a human being who's accountable. Was the systems that they were talking about AI replacing in their company last year, were they so efficient that they would not make any mistakes on the level of the people they were replacing? And I felt like just the systems weren't even there last year. So what was really happening behind closed doors for him to feel so confident? Now, to make the declaration that this is the way moving forward, yeah, that's water's wet, grass is green. This is what's happening. But were we really there? Because what he really should be concerned about is Duolingo even relevant over the next 10 years? Not just from a technology standpoint, but we don't know where this thing is going to go. There's a chance that in the next 10 years, being able to speak a different language isn't even relevant, because we can all have some sort of universal translator like Star Trek that doesn't even make it worth it to have to, or a brain implant, it doesn't even make it worth it. Yeah, I mean, they have audio, the Ray-Ban glasses, and this is step one. This is early tier. So you're replacing that with AI, but your company is in trouble. So was that smoke and mirrors? Were they really replacing? I don't know the people in there, but what I do know is that I don't know if I saw a lot of positive impact from that move they made in market share, and what are your thoughts on that? And Duolingo-like companies that are talking about this.
Dead on arrival. My speech to text model speaks 50 languages. My 9 billion parameter model speaks 50 languages. my my text to speech model speaks 50 languages, right? I don't see how they survive it. I just don't. I get live translation on my glasses. I mean, you can get live translation on your headphones. You can get live, like, translation is no language is becoming less and less of a barrier, which is an amazing time, right? It's so cool that that's actually happening, but it's not cool for Duolingo because they are not. It's
They
not
don't have an agent problem. They have a business model problem. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like, they have a business model problem, and I'm pretty sure they know it. I don't know what they're going to do to pivot. Their data set is their data set, so it has and holds some value, but to what extent? And you know, so yeah, is AI taking their jobs? Well, AI is taking the industry. So, but then the question is, was that industry meant to live for as long as it did? It did a lot of great work, but technology has almost eliminated it. I mean, people used to ride a horse from New York to Florida, and that was the most efficient way to ride. Now it'll be animal abuse if you tried to ride a horse from New York to Florida, especially if it was pulling a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Look. There's going to be some niche situations in which people require translation, probably in some medical fields, legal fields, when people are being deposed, things like that. But I think it's going to be very niche. I think it's going to fall into this very niche category that they're going to be doing something very specific, and I think all these translation companies are going to be duking it out for those contracts, and the ones that don't make it are they're gonna have to rethink about what it is they're going to be doing. But that's kind of how it works, right? Things fall out. It's a cycle, right? And if you're on the up and up and you see these things coming, you should be able to plan for it accordingly also, right? You see it coming. Everybody sees this coming. It's coming at you 90 miles an hour, and it's not a bee, it's a freight train. That these things are on the horizon. I mean, even looking at like ServiceNow, right? So their enterprise IT, AI agents resolves 90% of internal help desk tickets for ServiceNow. 90%. What does that mean for MSPs, internal IT staff? What does that mean for them, right? 90% of internal help desk tickets? Now, look, that was my background. I used to work for an MSP for a while, and I've always been in the tech space. But I can tell you that if 90% of the help desk tickets were removed, I mean, I would have been able to work on a lot more things, right? So I was also worked as kind of like a technical asset manager, et cetera. That's neither here nor there. But what does that mean for them? What does that mean for an MSP that's trying to give personalized service, right? They have SLAs, service level agreements. They have to respond to something within X amount of time, right? But now an AI agent can do it almost instantly. What does that mean for them? What does that mean for the companies that hired them? Are these companies that are just going to be able to spin up IT staff through ServiceNow as opposed to going through an MSP? Does that kill the MSP industry? But it doesn't, right? Because MSPs also deal with hardware also. So if you have any infrastructure, on site, whether it's, personal computers to servers to any sort of networking, voice over IP, things, it's your phones for anybody who's not, you don't have phone jacks anymore. You have phones through, Ethernet cables. What does that mean for that industry? How is that industry going to change? I think yeah, you're going to see the removal. It's going to be the same thing as you see in some of these junior engineers. You're going to see the removal of a lot of juniors and a lot of entry level positions. But then who replaces them? And I think we don't have all the answers right now in how this evolves. But I think that where a lot of these companies are thinking very bottom line thinking, and I think it's going to hurt them in the long run because people don't want to work forever. People aren't going to work forever. People want to retire. People want to go on vacation. People want to have time with their families, right? You're going to be shrinking headcount. Well, what does that mean for the person that shows up every day? Does that mean they have to be on? Does that limit their ability to actually have a child, go on vacation, spend time with their family. What does that look like for them? What does that look like for the person, right? You know, and that's kind of where I gravitate to, because I'm a family man myself, right? You know, I got 2 kids, 1 on the way, and no job could tell me that I can't show up for my wife who's giving birth. There's no they wouldn't like my response, you know.
Send it right to the AI agent HR.
Yeah, right. Talk to my agent; they can handle most things for you. You know, you look at Morgan Stanley; they're doing debrief tool, that generates meeting notes, services action items, drafts, follow-ups, and logs directly to Salesforce, which is interesting because I actually worked on something like that. But you know, that's neither here nor there. But it's something that you're going to see, right? That I feel like that's more of an aid as opposed to something that's actually replacing any headcount, right? I don't know. Is there somebody in the meeting that sits there and transcribes the entire meeting? I don't know if that's a position in and of itself. Generally, it's like somebody's assignment, right? Is what I've seen, which is the normal way of it. And now you just have things like Plod, right? If anybody's not familiar with something like Plod, you get a little device like this, right? It attaches to the back of your phone. And you go into a meeting and it records it for you, and it highlights all the points, and you know, Plod in and of itself. And a shout out to Plod, and I'm not trying to be an advertisement for Plod, but the GDPR, it's compliant, SOC 2 compliant, so you know, at least you can rest assured that at least they have that under their belt. But one of the things that I'm seeing across the board is a lot of hiring freezes and contractor cuts. And I think that's relevant, and it's highlighted in how long it takes people to get a job. On average, people are getting a job. It takes people 6 to 8 months now to actually find work. Which, you know what that means? It means that employers get to pick who they want. They're not starving for people to walk in the door. They get to take their pick. So what does that mean for the individual? You better be personable. You better go out and do some networking. And the chances of you getting in the door just on a resume is low. You getting in the door with somebody giving you a recommendation is how that's going to be working. And not saying you can't get in the door with a resume, but it's increasingly harder when HR is going through a stack of 1,000 resumes as opposed to just a few, right? And AI has made that a lot harder for people also, because you have these AI tools that just go out and send resumes everywhere. So now you have people contending with all these resumes that are getting sent, that are just getting plastered across the internet, and they're just getting piles that they have to sort from. And if you aren't in the first, 500, to say, I don't know. It's enough that ATS is ruling out people hand and foot, and you're having to ATS optimize your resume to even get looked at or to get it accepted, because I have to find different ways to filter people out.
You said an interesting thing, and as you said it, I'm starting to think. You said assignments. I feel like AI is taking assignments, but not jobs, because then when you start to really hover around the edge cases. That's why it's not dominating the medical field. It's not dominating the financial services field. It's not dominating the insurance field. It's not dominating the legal field. And all of these fields is yet. But today it's not, because it's good at assignments. And in the edge cases, in some of these fields, it's too risky for them to make some of these mistakes that we know agents can make at the edge cases. And a lot of these companies are working really hard to kind of plug those leaks. But from the architecture side, as well as good as AI is, on the edge cases, it still has a tendency to kind of do what it wants. But on an assignment, it could do a really good job doing a research paper or this, that, and the third. But then you're gonna need people somewhere along the lines to do a check until it shows that it's kind of eliminated those missteps on the edge cases. But the thing is, there's always going to be edge cases. No matter how good it gets, it should always be better at something. And that gap is where opportunity is for people to still provide tons of value, especially when there's a lot of momentum in your industry. So if you're in an industry that's moving super fast, like where do you test the edge cases? You know, like how do you know whether? Usually it's something really bad happened, they pull back completely, and then they reassess. And then some of the more cavalier companies are like, screw it. You know, we're gonna, you know, I appreciate watching Jensen Huang when he's doing these conferences, because he's open to these mistakes happening, and he addresses it right there, saying, "Hey, man, this is what happens when you don't prepare." You know, but hey, let's roll with it. And that's not an easy thing for every company to do. And those are people doing those mistakes. It's not AI, you know, but it's not an easy thing for people to do, and it's not even possible for some industries to even allow. So when I look at it, I say, yeah, AI today they're taking a lot of assignments, and they're going to take more assignments over time. And almost anything with a screen is something that AI can take over. So if your job has anything to do with using a screen, a phone screen, a desktop screen, a laptop screen, if anything is involved with the screen, there's a chance that AI is gonna eventually be able to do that really well. But when do you think? Because right now it looks like the cuts are being made just to fund the AI infrastructure, because AI has proven to be really good at these assignments. But I also feel like there's going to be a lot of rehiring once the dust settles and they realize, oh, these were the gaps. They're not going to hire everybody back, but they're definitely going to hire a few people back. But then when do you think is going to be the major avalanche, the real avalanche, where, yeah, nobody's coming back? You know, like the industry's dead, AI killed it. Or, you know, there's robots in the factories, which there already are, but I'm talking about humanoid bipedal robots, and humans are not coming back. When do you think that's going to happen? What's a realistic time frame?
That's a tough one to even kind of try to rationalize, right? Because, you know, we've had discussions about robots. We see what robots are doing right now. Robots are going into people's homes right now, but they're not fully automated. You have these people are actually scheduling when a human operator is going to take control of the robot to clean their house. So it's just like having a remote maid. like what? Having a remote maid. I got to talk to Yannette about this, so maybe she doesn't have to come over every week. But you know, see.
But watch out.
She could just throw a headset on and clean the house from wherever she is. But it's hard to see exactly when that's going to start taking over. But I feel like, you know, a lot of people are like, it's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen tomorrow. Everybody's like in a panic that it's going to happen overnight. I mean, since 2024, we've been talking about agents taking over. Agents taking over. Agents taking over. It's 2 years later now, and we're still saying the same thing, but it hasn't quite happened the way that people thought it was going to happen, right? And to your point, it's taking these assignments that people are able to do, right? What comes to mind is when I went to the deep learning conference, the head of Crew AI was there, and he was talking about how different businesses are using agents, and he was talking about how financial institution used it to aggregate information to be able to shrink the amount of time it takes them to process if somebody should take a loan or not, right? There's still a human at the end of the loop. The AI isn't making the whole decision, but it's a lot faster to aggregate a lot of that financial data utilizing AI, utilizing things like PLAID and some other financial tools. You know, something that would have taken somebody hours to actually get all the data for AI is being able to compress that down into minutes, and then there's still a human in the loop. So in that situation, not necessarily taking anybody's job there, right? You're making somebody else's job easier. So now loan officers are able to take care of more loans at a clip as opposed to spending hours doing research, right? There is some benefits here. But I think some of the questions that you have to ask yourself is, you know, what tasks are disappearing first, right? So if you're out there and you're noticing that things are starting to disappear, have any tasks replaced them? Are you doing any sort of verification with AI? Are you even there yet? Are those discussions happening at your workplace? Has your team shrunk? or is the same team handling more volume? These are the questions you have to ask yourself. Things are probably on the horizon. Things are probably changing for you. Did AI change how your performance is measured? Right? Speed, quality, customer satisfaction, because you know it is at some point, right? But when is it happening at the place of your business? If you're a freelancer, did clients disappear? Did are negotiations happening are your prices in the gutter? Are the shift towards more complex work? What training, if you're in a workplace and they're rolling out AI, what training did you actually receive, right? Is that something that's happening? And I think as you're answering these questions, you'll know whether or not the chopping block, so to speak, is up. Now, I don't want to laugh about that because these are people's jobs, these are people's livelihoods, right? I mean, it's easy for us to come on here and talk about, whether AI agents are taking jobs, but there's a lot of real fear, right? There's a lot of real fear out there, and those questions do need to be answered. But to your point, like you said earlier, there is going to be a lot of startups and a lot of jobs and a lot of businesses that are grassroots coming up that are able to pick those people up, right? Not just developers, but a lot of the people that are being displaced by this will find work in there. Is it going to be the same kind of work? I don't know. I wish I had a crystal ball to say it. I'd be the first one lined up, ready to go, get ahead of the curve, right? But which workflows are truly end-to-end automated today, right? These are things that you have to think about when you're sitting in the seat. And as a person, you can't just be anti-AI because you're scared, because you're going to end up on a chopping block. AI will take your job, right? It's super cliche to say that, if you don't adopt AI, somebody who does is going to take. How many times have we heard that? It's overplayed. It's overtold. People don't want to hear it anymore. But the fact of the matter is these businesses, Oracle, Microsoft, maybe NVIDIA. I guess NVIDIA is selling it. NVIDIA, IBM, Salesforce, all these jobs that are making cuts have the same thing is happening. Their capital expenses are being pushed towards AI spending. So whether or not what you believe, unfortunately, becomes irrelevant to the fact that these things are happening. They're making room for AI to live here and grow. This isn't a bubble. This is going to be the new reality that we're living in, right? And a lot of people are saying they can't wait for the bubble to pop. They can't wait for the bubble to pop and for things to go back to normal. They're going to have a very rude awakening because what normal looks like is going to be fundamentally altered.
Yeah, and I think you touched on another point that as you're talking about it, I'm thinking, yeah, AI is going to take some jobs for sure. And it already has in some capacities, but I'll reframe it as assignments. It's knocking out a lot of assignments. But the thing that we also have to consider is that it's not happening for free. So when you spin up an agent to do a lot of tasks outside of the local environment, if you're an enterprise company, you're paying somebody the API fees. You're paying somebody to set up and maintain the agents. There's probably going to be some sort of database management somewhere. So are we just shifting around costs? And I'm saying that to say that, okay, we were going to pay this person $5,000 a month. We're okay paying $4,000 in API, like all the costs to actually do their task. But is the value that this is happening 24/7? Is you can scale up and scale down with no issues. There's an acceptable margin of error because of these other benefits, because there's still costs. So if you're thinking that, oh man, I'm gonna bring on an AI agent to revolutionize my company, you have to also think that there's a budget that you have to keep this going, and that budget. The question is, how close is that budget to what you were gonna pay a person, or even a contractor or a freelancer?
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And we touched on this a bunch in episode 1 also, is John the accountant going to be making more money, or it's a transference of costs? So I had a conversation with a business owner at some point, and they were talking about how they can reduce their headcount with AI. And I said, instead of reducing headcount, why don't you think of it in terms of increasing your ability to do business? Because you're going to be able to scale it a lot bigger without increasing headcount. And I think that's I think that's what we're going to see a lot more of. You're going to see a lot of these businesses being able to do more with less. But again, that boils back to the point of, what does that mean for the people that are sitting in the seats? There has to be some sort of redundancy for them. The business can't be the business can't be reliant on somebody showing up every day, never taking vacation, no sick days, nothing like that. There has to be enough of a staff in order to actually to do that. Otherwise, your quality of life turns into work. I mean, and that's one of the qualities of the U.S. But even so, we don't work like the Chinese. That's for sure. You don't.
Yeah, I mean, work-life balance is the new term, and it's valid, because you do need a little bit of balance. You do need there's other things that are important other than your job, especially when you have a family and people to support. Even if you have a community, there's a lot of different areas where your time and where your time is important, and AI actually should help you be able to have the same level of productivity and probably more free time when it's used as a tool in that capacity. And this is kind of where I'm thinking about it. I'm saying maybe some companies for sure can have agents kind of really do their job, and then there's definitely some industries that are severely hit. But then it's also like perspective. You can have an agent go in and really kind of orchestrate your marketing, or you can have a marketing professional use agents and 100x their productivity. Those are going to be business decisions that people are going to have to make. What industry are you in, and what is your margin of error? What is your revenue? Are you worried about other things other than this, and you're just trying to reduce costs because your industry unfortunately is on the AI chopping block? And it's not that you're trying to replace people with AI, you're just trying to reduce costs. But then when you go and you build all these systems, you realize the cost is pretty much the same, but now you're just beholden, instead of being beholden to a quote unquote employee, you're stuck with Anthropic and Chat GPT and Gemini. And what happens if they increase the API costs? Hey guys, I'm sorry, there's an energy crunch, and there's nothing we could do, but it just costs us more money to run these chips. We have to pass that cost on to you. And while you thought you were saving money, you ran into a situation where you're paying just as much or more, and there's nothing you could do about it. And now you've maxed out what that agent could do, so that agent can't bring you any more revenue without you spending more money. What do you do then? Could a human have outperformed that agent in that scenario? These are interesting questions. These are the thoughts that are jumping into my head, but these are the conversations that need to be had, especially if you're a C-suite and you're trying to figure out what the next move is. Because it's more than just AI can do this thing really well, let me have this thing over a person. There's a lot more questions that need to be asked. Some of those questions were already asked and unfortunately already answered. Many of these questions that are being asked now are going to be answered. In the long run, unfortunately, AI is going to do a lot better at these tasks that we didn't believe were possible. But on the opposite side, I think it's going to open up so many industries that we didn't even that were just neglected. We never even thought about exploring these areas because they were just too far outside the reach of the average Joe. These were something that were only for the top pharmaceutical companies or technology companies. But now a guy who has a regular 9 to 5, he's making 60 grand a year, spends his money efficiently, has a little bit of extra cash every month, and he goes in and invests $1,000 a month into a team of research scientists and his goal is to cure Alzheimer's or maybe even just arthritis for dogs, and then he figures it out, and then he goes and turns it into something. What does that world look like? I don't know, man. I'm interested either way.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's pretty clear we don't know where the dust is going to settle, right? We don't know if the productivity gains are going to mostly flow to capital. Inequality widens without countervailing policy, or will new tasks emerge around AI oversight, escalation handling, orchestration, trust-sensitive work requiring accountability. Are millions of roles going to be created out of this? Or unfortunately, when it comes to people, I'm worried about just straight bottom line thinking, because especially in capitalistic society, we're very bottom line driven, as opposed to being very people centric. And this isn't to be political. This is just talking about the drivers in those specific areas. And I feel like we're going to end up going through hardship before it gets better. It's going to get harder before it gets easier, so to speak. And unfortunately, for the sake of people, I think that's the route it's going to go with this.
Well, typically in boxing, you get knocked out by the punch you don't see coming. But the beauty of this is that we can see those punches coming, if we want to acknowledge it as a punch or not. And if you're in any of these areas, in any of these fields, and you think there's a punch that should be coming, this is got to sound the alarm. That got to go and figure out how you can leverage AI to do whatever. Maybe it's to upskill. Maybe there's a true passion that you had that you never were able to explore. That you'll be surprised how much you could learn in a short period of time by having a team of experts in your pocket feeding you information and creating curriculums that can allow you to go in and upskill in a couple months and then become more dangerous in the marketplace. Probably while you're even on your job right now. There's things that are going to need to happen. Because I agree, man. I think the short term, while everything's being figured out, is going to be rougher for the average Joe. But for those who are encouraged, and maybe even pissed off a little bit by how things are going out, that motivation could turn into, is there a problem that I always wanted to solve that now I actually have the possibility of solving? Is there a community of people that I interact with who also feel the same way? And maybe we can go in and tackle something, because there's so many things, there's so many problems to solve. It's going to be difficult for the top companies to be good at every single thing on planet Earth. And even if they wanted to, there's still resource constraints. So they'll be okay or maybe touch it. But, there's a reason why OpenAI closed down Sora. They got the billions of dollars. They're the number one, number two, arguably, AI company in the world. And they had to make a decision to say, we can't move forward in this domain, at least for this period of time. So there's going to be a lot of these decisions that are going to be made by these top companies just to kind of show everybody that they can't handle and solve everything. And that's the opportunity for us to leverage AI and figure out, what are the areas that have been neglected for so long, that there's opportunity there. And instead of that money being redirected to the top companies, now it's going to start to be redistributed, kind of like the way we've seen everything else happen in the music industry. Even cable television. It used to be dominated by a few people. Now YouTube has changed everything. Now, granted, it's YouTube that's grabbing all that traffic, but the eyeballs, I don't have to choose to go to one source to get information. I could go and find a creator, and now that person is getting all of my attention.
Yeah, no, look, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest calls to action is from what we're seeing in this environment is if you're on the fence about whether or not AI is going to play a big factor in what it is you do, the chances are it is. And your ability to jump on, look, and we're not talking about bandwagon hopping, right? I mean, trust me, I hate following trends as much as anybody else who does them. I actually actively engage in not following trends. But look, it's going to happen, and you have to learn how to leverage it in order to stay relevant in this climate. And that's just one of the things that comes with adaptability, right? You have to adapt to what's happening around. But we're getting on to almost an hour. I wanted to thank you guys for tuning in again. We made it to 3 episodes, which is really cool. I've been having a ton of fun with this with Val. Look, if you're looking for a community or looking for, you feel free. I always put the link for our website in the comments in the YouTube, so you can sign up for it. You can join our Discord. You can have direct chats with us. You can put comments in. If you're looking for a place to learn, or looking for somewhere where non-judgmental. I mean, who am I to judge anybody, right?
And it won't hurt to like, comment, and subscribe. It never hurts.
Absolutely.
Be a friend. Join the
I'll see you guys next week.
Take care, guys.